Hi everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. As you're probably already pretty familiar if you're watching my channel and subscribe to me, I'm participating in Historathon2024. This is our second year of doing this, and we are reading history from, well, I don't know exactly when we're starting, but a long time ago, the dawn of human history at least, up until at the end of the year, up until the present day. And one of the questions that was on my mind for a lot of last year was not so much learning about particular historical events or particular people or place names, but it's more about learning things that underwrite and set the foundation for the act of writing and telling history. And there's a name for that. It is called historiography. And I wanted to take this opportunity to start a series of what I'm going to call video essays that are related to Historathon 2024. I'm going to try to roughly break them up and make sure that they align with the dates that we have set for Historathon. But the dates don't really subscribe to hard beginning, and so I'll try my best. But there is this question of foundations. How do you make sure you're doing good history, and what does good history mean depending on when and where you're writing it? These are some interesting questions to investigate. And before I go on to talk a little bit about what historiography is, I want to do a bit of a disclaimer about this series in general. This series, or whatever becomes of it, I've already written episode 1 and episode 2, so there will at least be 2, cover just the European tradition, which we can think of as broadly starting in sort of the Greco-Roman world around the times of Hesiod and Homer through the 20th century. So that's what I would like to cover. There are vast bodies of other historiographical material out there, for example, Chinese historiography, African historiography, that simply can't be covered, at least by me, because I don't have the background and I don't have the books, quite honestly, to be able to even begin to do that in an intelligent or interesting way. However, it's worth saying that the same fundamental questions that you would apply in those contexts and in those places also apply here and can be used to pursue historiography of any general time or place. So you can take the same lessons learned, the same ideas, and apply them anywhere to any time. Also, I don't want to pretend like many of the ideas that I have that I'll be presenting are new. Many of them are based around the chapters in this book. This is Historiography, Ancient, Medieval, and Modern by Ernst Breisach. And roughly the first 6 or 7 chapters, from what I can tell, here are related to quarter 1 in Historathon. So I'm doing an introductory chapter right now, introductory episode, installment, whatever you want to call it. And then after that, each chapter I want to dedicate an episode to. And there are 28 or 30 chapters to the book. So like I said, it would be an ambitious project if I did it all the way through to the end of the year. I might get a portion of the way through and then pick it up next year. But that is the plan as it exists right now. So they are coming from this book. This is a wonderful book, by the way. So if you're interested in this ongoing series, pick up a copy of that. And I would like to just talk a little bit about what historiography is. So let's just look at the etymology of it at a very sort of superficial level. Historiography means the history of writing or the history of storytelling, depending on how exactly you want to translate it. And to be more precise, we use the word as a kind of umbrella to discuss the methodologies, the set of methodologies that historians use to go about the enterprise of writing history. And to talk about methodologies is to really get at the heart of an extremely important group of questions, because the underlying assumptions, the underlying worldviews and priorities that people have at one time and in one culture may vary wildly from those at another time in another culture, and therefore end up producing very different kinds of history. In this way, historiography forces historians and readers of history alike, consumers of history like us, to reconcile themselves to what you might call the heterogeneity of historical construction. Still, we use the word historiography in at least two different ways. The first refers to the broad range of methodological approaches that are used in a certain time period or that are applied to a particular historical event. Like you can say the historiography of the French Revolution, and that would refer to, broadly speaking, the large body of history that has been written about the French Revolution. Or you can say something like medieval historiography. That's the broad set of histories and chronicles written by people of the medieval age. There is a more important usage of the word, though, and it's the second way that you use the word. It's a way of writing about history. Historiography is writing about history at a remove, studying how historians have built and understood their reading and reading and understanding of past events. And like I said, this fundamental set of questions involves worldviews, involves choosing aesthetic forms and how to write history, a question that we'll touch on the next episode, and the research methods that you might use and utilize when you're writing down past events. While history and historiography are distinct from one another, they also feed into one another. And the study of prevailing politics, ideas, and categories of a time help us better understand the attitudes and mentalities of a particular environment. Not only the people who are subjects of those histories, whether they be kings or aristocrats or ordinary people like us, but also the historians themselves. I think historiography always strikes us as woolly or arcane because, at least in the short term of a few generations, these assumptions and worldviews only change maybe imperceptibly. Consider the similar problem of how it's sometimes difficult for us to understand how ants and elephants can have a common biological ancestor using only the timescales that are only available to humans, maybe 100, 150, maybe 200 years. Can we really imagine? Anything like a scale of 1 million, 10 million, 100 million years is completely inconceivable to us. And the same way with human history, which is maybe 8 to 10,000 years old, and historiography much younger than that. Those are still, despite those small numbers, still numbers that are hard to think about. Only with the occasional intellectual revolution, like, say, the Enlightenment or the passing of centuries, far outside the living memory of any single person, can trying to understand the changes undergone by historiography begin to make any sense. To create a historical sensibility, which is really what historiography is all about. It's about constructing a sensibility in which to narrate past events. You must use a panoply of strategies. You have to use a semantic strategy, meaning that you have to choose words to communicate your ideas. You have to choose a cognitive strategy, a way to understand and interpret and frame the knowledge that you have. Aesthetic categories. How am I going to present the information I want to share? Am I going to use poetry? Am I going to use prose? Am I going to use song, for example? And rhetorical strategies. How do you build a source of orientations and associations between ideas? Political strategies. How do you help shape collective memory? How does history and history writing help shape the memory, collective memory of a society or of a civilization? This series will, during the episodes that I make of it, hopefully seek to better understand these and related strategies. And while I will always argue that this is a pursuit worthy in and of itself, I always think it has a more proximate goal too, which is to encourage us as readers of history to read it with a much more critical eye toward the assumptions of its authors, historians, instead of just passively accepting history as an unquestioned source of knowledge that just falls out of the sky, fully formed. If anything, I want to drive home the point that history is always a human construction. Historical events are not always human constructions, but history as a narrative is always human because it's always storytelling. These are some ideas that I want to look at over the course of however many episodes this lasts. If this sounds interesting, stick around for episode 2, and I will talk about the birth pangs of Greek historiography. I will talk to you later.